Well, let me call the meeting to order. And this is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for September 8th, 2020. I'll go over the agenda. At 7 o'clock, community input. 7:05, the LEPC update. 7:15, a joint meeting with the planning board to fill a planning board vacancy. 7:25, master plan steering committee update. 8 o'clock, presentation and update on the municipal aggregation renewal by Colonial Power. 8:30, joint meeting with FinCom, the Long Range Capital Requirements Committee, a whole bunch of other things, moderator, clerk, all having to do with the October 17th, now firm town meeting. 9:30, appointments and resignations. 9:40, town administrators report. 9:50, liaison reports. 10 o'clock, approval of minutes, and 10:05, adjournment. And of course, as usual, we may take things a little out of order if the schedule permits. Is there anybody for community input? Seeing none, we'll go to the LEPC update. Chief Fisher.
Thank you very much, Alan. Good evening, all. From an LEPC front, we met this morning, and I have to say that I think Carlisle's doing really well. So I think that our citizens are committed to staying safe, and proof is in the numbers. So we're at 20 confirmed cases since the pandemic began, and 12 probable. We've got some important planning things going on. And I would also like to highlight the work of the Carlisle Neighbor Response Team, that they have just continued to ensure that anybody in Carlisle that needs healthy food delivered, needs food shopping done for them, needs important errands run, they've just done a tremendous job. So I'd like to just take this moment and thank them publicly for all their work. There was nothing super new from the emergency planning front. We are working with the Board of Health. We met this afternoon to work on the safety plan for the flu clinic. We're looking forward to Carlisle seniors that like to participate in the flu clinic coming by on October 2nd. Linda Fantasia's group has an excellent plan for doing this safely. And I hope all those that are able and that want the flu shot would contact our friends at the Board of Health and sign up when the documents become available. And the last thing I'd like to highlight, if I could, is that we've been getting calls, and I know that selectmen have been getting calls about Halloween. And we'd like to just mention that the Carlisle Cheer Committee has taken that on as a task. They're going to come back to the LEPC with a plan. I think the LEPC is unified in that we'd at least like to have a plan for trick-or-treating and plan for Halloween festivities in Carlisle. And if for some reason it has to be canceled, we would at least like to have a good plan and hope that we can move forward with that. So I think that's really all there is to highlight tonight, Alan. But of course, you were there, Kate was there, Tim was there. If I've neglected to highlight anything, would you please fill in the gaps?
Oh, sounds like a good one. I don't know if Barney was surprised to hear that the cheer committee has taken this on.
My sources had already told me about it.
Excellent, very good. Yeah, that's, I mean, that committee has done such wonderful work in organizing events that have been gone off without any problem at all. I'm going to turn off my phone here so I don't get any more robocalls. Anyway, so good that they're going to do this because they've got great experience in putting these kind of things together, and so we will look forward to your recommendations. And I have nothing more. Kate, anything from you?
Yes, the other thing the LEPC did discuss was dog etiquette in the time of COVID. We would like to encourage people to keep a close eye on their dogs, especially friendly dogs, because if they get close to other people, then you have to get close to, in pursuing your dog, you have to get closer to other people than you might normally do if you didn't have to get your dog away from them. So although, we do not have, everybody must keep their dog under control one way or another. That is we don't have a leash law in particular, but we will insist, that people try very hard to keep their dogs under control. We'll do some more communications about that later, maybe have something in the mosquito.
Yeah, there has been concern of an increased number of reports of dogs running a little bit not under control, and we want to be sure that people exercise good dog etiquette and keep their dogs in good control so that leashes are not required.
Especially David's dog, who I just heard barking again.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Chief Fisher. Good report. The LEPC, by the way, kudos where they're due. The LEPC has done a wonderful job of planning so that we don't have to have emergency reactions to things, and that's the whole purpose of that. They meet every week. It's a wonderful group with lots of people who know exactly what they're doing and who are not at all averse to volunteering when it's necessary. It's a great group, and we're very, very appreciative of the work that your group does, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Appreciate the time.
Okay. I see Madeline Blake is with us, Planning Board. You're muted.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm not sure are we next? I'm not sure we yet have a quorum of planning board members. I see Pete, I see Ed. We're waiting for Rob Mizek. We told people 7:15, so sorry for.
Oh, okay. Yep, you're right. That's what you're on the thing for. You're on the schedule for 7:15. Let me perhaps we've got a few minutes here. Jump ahead. Maybe town administrator's report. Tim.
Sure. I'd be happy to touch on an item or two. First item regarding the Insurance Advisory Committee. The town treasurer and I are going to meet with representatives of the Maya Health Trust this week in preparation for a meeting with the full Insurance Advisory Committee. Maya is another consortium that offers health benefits. And we think as part of our due diligence, we ought to look at what other market pricing is out there. So we'll be setting up a meeting with the Insurance Advisory Committee shortly. And as you know, any prospective changes in the insurance plans, the town's participation in those plans, currently 50-50, would have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. The Insurance Advisory Committee could make a recommendation to the board, but the board, you would have to approve any changes. So that's just kind of a heads up. We'll have a meeting of the full committee in a week or two. And just to keep you advised of that. Also in my report, you'll see information from the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization, their annual elections for members to the MPO. I don't think anyone from our district is up for election this year. However, the chief elected official in each community is eligible to nominate and vote in the MPO election. So that would be Alan as the chief elected official in the town. And if you have any questions regarding that, happy to try to answer them or get you some more information. That I think it's in October. The election actually takes place. The third item in my report, there's some beaver control issues that the Conservation Commission has reported some serious concerns with the Maple Street Bridge and Culvert. And they've solicited a proposal from a beaver control expert, if you will, on resolving that problem. Gary Davis has been attempting to deal with the issue. And I guess to be fair, Gary's not certain that this is the right way to go. I think he's fearful that every time there's a beaver problem, we're going to call a consultant in and he's going to get stuck with a bill for $2,000. So it's certainly an issue that needs to be dealt with. And yeah, perhaps we can have representatives of CONSCOM and Gary. We can meet offline, or we can bring them into a future meeting. But I did want you to know that that proposal had been received. No funds have yet been identified as to how those services would be paid for.
Tim, do you know if that's similar, what Gary has in mind, to what they do on Brook Street? I know I see them constantly removing branches and things from the Brook Street culvert as well.
Yeah, I think DPW has a manner of dealing with it that they feel is pretty successful, not totally. And I'm not sure how the specialists' plan would be different or would be an enhancement to that. But right now, I think Maple Street's not the only place where there's an issue, and CONSCOM would like to address this. They've had a number of residents that have brought these concerns to their attention, and I think we're hoping for some help from DPW on that. And there's a bit of an impasse at the moment.
And Tim, the proposal the proposal from Beaver Solutions looks like it's got two different parts. One is Beaver Control, which looks like it's about $3,000, and then I thought there was a second one, or did I see a second one that was for Beaver Maintenance? That with additional.
There might be three. There's an initial assessment, which is pretty. It's just a few $100s, and then I think there are two levels of.
Oh yeah.
Treatment.
Yeah, here's the second one, which looks like it's a little hard to, is it $29.91? Oh, but they're giving us discounts. Anyway, it's a little confusing what the total cost of this proposal is, just when it does come to a point where we really need to, make any decision. Just that would be helpful to clarify that.
Okay. And I know CONSCOM will be happy to come in and discuss this with the board.
But it sounds like the CONSCOM, you're sort of reading between the lines that the DPW and CONSCOM aren't yet on the same page about this.
I think that's accurate. I think if the board were to direct Gary to work this out with CONSCOM, he would do so. Right now, he's kind of digging his heels in a little bit, I think,
Yeah, okay.
as he sometimes does.
Okay. Anything else, Tim?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. One thing you had on there was we had talked about a possible October 17th, not October 17th, but September 17th Board of Selectmen's meeting. That's currently not on the schedule. What do the selectmen feel on that? Is that going to be necessary?
Okay.
Or you want to wait till we see what we get accomplished tonight?
Actually, there's a possible one on the listed for October
Right.
6th.
6th, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. That's one. Yeah.
Right, yeah, that would be the one had. No, sorry.
And what's the thinking there? Is that because of special town meeting or just more things on the agenda that we haven't gotten to?
I think it was just to reserve the date in case we needed to meet before the town
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
But there's
Right.
nothing.
I think there'd be 3 weeks between meetings if we didn't stick one in the middle there,
Yeah.
Yep.
I see.
leading up to a town meeting, so you
Gotcha.
kind of
Okay.
not want to go 3 weeks, yeah.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we can decide before we adjourn tonight whether we want to do that. See what we get accomplished tonight.
Okay.
Okay, it's 7:15. Planning board.
I just texted Rob and he said on my way, so he'll be
All right.
here any moment. Can I get started, or do you want me to? Rob has received Sarah Smith's resume. Sarah's our nomination for our open spot on the planning board. So I guess I could get things going.
Okay,
I'm Madeline Blake, Chair of the Planning Board, 127 Carlton Road. Thank you for having us to your meeting, and fellow planning board members Ed Rolfe and Pete Yeller here, and Rob Misick is joining us. We have a vacancy on the planning board that resulted when Jonathan DeCock submitted his resignation, and we would like to put forward Sarah Smith of 35 Great Brook Path. Sarah is an architect by training and education. For the last 5 years, she's been working as a planner. Prior to that, she had jobs in the field of architecture, and she's quite an accomplished Carlisle volunteer as well. So we're very happy to have her.
So I move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81A, to appoint Sarah Cassidy Smith of 35 Great Brook Path to fill the vacancy on the planning board until the next annual election, at which time such office shall be filled by election for the remainder of the unexpired term.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have to say I was very impressed by this lady's resume, and I expect that we're going to be very grateful to her. Well, that's not the word I was looking for, but we're
Fortunate.
fortunate. Thank you. That was the word. We're very fortunate to have found her. And yes, thank you. That was exactly the word I was looking for.
Very good. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Louis, aye.
Odell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Okay.
And the planning board, I believe, also has to vote.
Yep.
Okay, Blake, aye. And we also have Jason Walsh joining us as well as Rob Misick. So I'll start off and say Blake, aye.
Misick, aye.
Rolfe, aye.
Walsh, aye.
Peter Yelly, you're muted. I saw you say aye.
Aye.
There we go.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Congratulations to Sarah Smith, and thank you for agreeing to serve. We are a town of volunteers, and it's wonderful to have people step up, especially people with good credentials and lots of ability. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Master Plan Steering Committee. Again, we're about 5 minutes ahead of time.
I'm one of the co-chairs, or I guess I'm a
Yep.
co-vice chair of the steering committee. But Jan Corneal, who's actually the chair, is planning to take the lead with you guys tonight. And I had told her 7:25. So you guys are just like really speedy tonight. Kind of getting ahead of us.
All right.
Um,
Well, maybe we could.
why don't I, before Jan gets here, I'm kind of wearing two hats here, which is sometimes a lot, but I'm on the steering committee and also I'm the chair of the planning board. And Pete Yell, who's on this meeting, recently became a co-chair of the planning board with me. Not sure if you guys know that. So in our role as the board that sponsored the master plan and has responsibility for it, the planning board is conducting a review also of where things stand. And at the planning board's August 24th meeting, we had about an hour and 15-minute discussion with Jan. I think a lot of it will be what you'll hear tonight. And the planning board, as an upshot of that, asked for 3 items. We're looking for that for our October 5th meeting, although if people need a little more time, it's flexible. George Mansfield agreed to start a working group with 3 people who have been serving on the master plan steering committee, and they're going to make recommendations about changes in structure and scope and what our timeline should be going forward, if there's any changes we need in how we organize our volunteer committee. The Pete Yell and Ed Rolfe, as vice chair, also asked for a written status report showing what we've done and where we expect to go for the master plan. Jan Corneal and Gretchen Kaywood from our office are indexing and making a table of contents and collating all the material that we've generated, both the consultant and us. And we're going to put that on the town server so that it's more easily navigable. And then the final piece is that we have existing conditions reports, which are factual explanations of various areas, topical areas in Carlisle. Civic Moxie did most of them, took them most of the way. We thought there were still some changes that needed to be done to them or some additions, and we're striving to finish that by this October 5th deadline as well, because those probably serve as one of the best detailed status reports of the different areas. So I don't, you want to add anything, Pete? Pete's kind of leading this from the planning board side because of the fact that I'm in both roles.
No, I think you've summarized it correctly. I wasn't quite aware of tonight's presentation, so this is interesting. Should be good.
We'll give Jan here a few minutes to come on board.
Can I make a motion for approval of one of the sets of minutes while we're waiting, or?
Sure, yep.
Okay, I move approval of the Tuesday, August 11th minutes. As you said, you had a couple of typos in those.
I did on page 2, maybe one of the pages you didn't get.
Yes.
Just Victor Liang is throughout the both sets of minutes. They have him as Victor Liange. There's an extra G in there, so I just don't want to correct the spelling. That's all. Those are the only edits that I found.
Okay. So I move approval of the minutes as amended.
We
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote.
Let's see who.
Barney's muted.
Oh, Barney, you're first. Are you still muted?
There you go.
Sorry, Arnold, I.
Lewis, aye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye. And I don't see Jen Corneal yet, so I move approval of the minutes of Tuesday, August 25th, 2020.
Good. Same thing here. On page 3, Victor's name is the fire department liaison is spelled wrong.
Yeah, there's no E at the end of it, yeah.
So I have two corrections. One is I didn't see Scott Trio. I didn't see any mention of school liaison, which I believe is Scott Triola in the think liaison assignments.
Okay.
Okay.
And then attributed to me is a comment that the 300K reduction at the region would be 75% to Carlisle, but it's actually 75,000, which is 25%. Nice if it was 75%.
Yeah, that would be nice. Gee, we were counting on that money too. Do we have to correct the minutes?
Yeah, if we said it, if it's in the minutes, it must be true.
Must be true, right? Okay, any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Lewis, aye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Thank you, unanimous.
We'll try reverse alphabetical just to mix it up.
Oh, we're too easy to confuse, David. All right, good. That moves us well ahead. Now all we have left is 10:05 adjournment. Okay, let's see. I'm looking to see if Jan is with us yet.
Yes, she is.
She is. Welcome.
Hi, Jan.
Hey,
In a nice place too, there with the bridge in back of you.
yeah, no forest fires.
No. Welcome. Would you let us know what's going on with the Master Planning Committee?
Sure. I'll go through a little bit of sort of what the last couple of months have looked like. I'll try to be super brief. And then just talk sort of where we're at, and then talk about what we've got going on sort of moving forward. So, so as you know, we've actually done quite a bit of work with Civic Moxie since last we got kicked off almost a year ago now, October. And we more or less got through mostly the first phase of the work. There's 3 phases to the work. There were 3 phases to Civic Moxie's overall contract. We got through the first phase, which was basically a whole lot of public engagement, a couple of public meetings, a lot of interviews and data gathering and organizing, and the kitchen conversations, and just a whole range of different approaches to trying to get people active in the process. And it culminated in a comprehensive package of materials that we were calling the existing conditions reports, which is more or less covers the background info, data analysis, summaries of feedback from the community, and key takeaways, and some preliminary goals. And that set of documents is covers a range of things like land use, zoning, housing, natural resources and open space, transportation, sustainability, etc. So as of early April, the reports and the maps were still in draft form, even though Civic Moxie had more or less finalized I think it was their 3rd version of those things. Then COVID hit, and we put the public process on hold. The Civic Moxie more or less went on hold. At that point in early March, they were roughly 3 months behind schedule. So they had finished up phase 1. We, as a committee, the Master Plan Steering Committee, continued to meet regularly, and we did things like we reviewed the existing conditions reports. We started up the process of determining what the vision and values statement should be, and we more or less tried to figure out how to adjust to the new normal. So we started thinking up a process for engaging some student interns over the summer to help us with some of the map fact checking and recreating a more interactive website. So in June, Civic Moxie started to re-engage, and the first step was to revise the schedule, and we went back and forth with them for a few weeks. They were really keen on cramming what now looked to us like a 7-month delay into about 3 months. And I think it just was something we just couldn't resolve. So we got their resignation letter on July 10th. And we met a couple times during July and early August to try to figure out how to proceed. And the map and website work was continuing, which is, I think you may have had a little preview of that. Did we show the Board of Selectmen that? I forget now. It might have just been the planning board. Yeah. Bob, Zog, and Madeline have sort of taken over, really doing a thorough final review of the existing conditions reports and identifying the gaps. There were a couple of things that Civic Moxie just wasn't focused on. For example, the data, the census, like the economic base and the demographic data was census data. It was state level census data. And they were using the American Community Survey data. And one of the challenges with that is that it's not very precise when you come to a community the size of Carlisle. So there were a few things that we just wanted to go back and fill in the gaps. The housing information was pretty high level, and what it really needed was for us to get deeper into it. So those kinds of things are underway, and both Bob and Madeline, with some help from David Friedman, have been worked in mostly in August on trying to finalize those. The other big piece of work that we've been working on is a financial model, which some of you might have seen. I'm not sure whether you guys have seen it yet. Barney says no, I think.
No,
But that,
I haven't, I know. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's in draft form. Carrie and John Ballantyne and Lynn Lipinski have been working in concert with, in sort of checking in with and collaborating with FinCom and the finance director to build this model that allows us to project revenue and costs to the town over about a 10-year period. And the goal is that that becomes one of the tools that we have in our toolkit to start plugging in how much housing when over 10 years, what are the public facilities investment options that we might explore as part of the master plan. So that's also something that we should over the next couple of weeks maybe find time for Carrie to do a little bit of a dry run. I think they're circling back with the finance committee now on that. Anyway, so in August, Civic Moxie delivered a very complete, comprehensive folder of backup files and documentation of the work they've done to date. They also submitted a couple of documents that we hadn't seen before, which were an interesting start, or a good start at the analysis, but had happened without really much engagement with us. So we really need to circle back and look at those, which included a potential growth and development build-out analysis, but it's a fairly basic look at that, and we really need to build it more thoroughly. I think you have perhaps had access to that. Barney, I might be saying all the wrong things. Maybe it's the planning board that has all this access. Basically, what we've been doing now in the last 2 meetings, we've done a few things. One is we've set up George Mansfield has formed an advisory group, which consists of Bob Zog, Stacy Lennon, and John Ballantyne, to review all the materials, all the schedules and the scopes of work, and really take a fresh look at what we've done, where we're at, and what the schedule should be looking forward, and what the scope of work is. They're also looking at how to restructure our committee so it's more effective. There's a lot of work that has to get done, and we formed some subgroups, but we still use the open meeting to review everything, and it's just very inefficient and takes a ton of time to get through anything. So we thought that one part of the work that Bob and the gang could do was really just take a look at how we could restructure the work in the committee and make some recommendations about assignments. And then third is identify what consultants in what specific areas we should really be recommending that we use the budget that we have left to hire in order to get to move forward with that. One of the consultant or outside work tasks that everybody seems pretty consistent. Everyone on the master plan steering committee seemed pretty much behind, and that the scope working group or advisory group, or SAG, will really take a close look at is a project manager, someone who, the thing about the master plan is there's at any one time, there's 6 to 10 work streams and a ton of public engagement. And it's just way more than I think a volunteer committee can do without a consultant.
Without a project manager, right?
Is that what I said?
You said consultant, but
Yeah, but like a project manager, yeah.
okay.
So we're getting our first check-in with that group tomorrow at our meeting, and our goal is to have a recommendation to the planning board on October 5th. And in the meantime, we're developing the tools we need to do the work. We're working to finalize the website, the interactive website, which is basically our main community engagement tool during COVID. There will be other forms of engagement, but that will be a real workhorse. As I mentioned, the financial model, and we're also working on the other pieces of the planning analysis, including the GIS database of parcel data. So I don't know, have I missed anything, Madeline, Barney, Bob?
No.
Happy to answer any questions or.
I have just one kind of general comment is that we recognize that we need to sort of re-engage with residents in Carlisle and have people understand what we've been doing over the summer and sort of and be clear about the fact that we're continuing to work on the master plan, even with Civic Moxie's resignation. And so there is a small subgroup of the steering committee that's working on, we're looking at a survey, but we're also looking at a communication piece, something short but clear that kind of connects with everybody in town and explains where we are. That can be something that we would get out to everybody via the mail, probably sometime early fall.
Yeah, I would mention that, like your meetings, we have a regular mosquito reporter. Karen Panico comes. She's been writing, I think, every issue, something about the plan.
Do you have any idea of long-term timeline when there might be something ready?
So I think that's what this scope advisory group is looking at. It could be, I mean, I'd hate to say anything on public record, but when Civic Moxie, when we closed down the process, we had about 7 months left to go, to get through the analysis phase, which involves a great deal of public engagement and, talking to boards and committees and discussions about what our options are. And then there's, just going to take a time also then to finalize a draft and develop some implementation strategies. And so I would hate to say, jump the gun and hate to say how long, but there's part of the group. We have a good, healthy blend of folks on the committee that want to keep the momentum going, and a good, healthy blend of folks who really think we should give the community a little breather while COVID ensues, and not ask anybody to make any big decisions. So I think we're balancing those two things, and we'll come up with something that kind of makes sense for all.
Yeah, I guess I would ask that perhaps, I mean, COVID certainly has changed a lot of things, especially in, in terms of timelines, and not only that, even in terms of financial modeling and that sort of thing. It's kind of thrown a monkey wrench in a lot of that stuff. But I would hope that you would come up, not immediately, but in the not too distant future, with a revised timeline where you can say, here's our new expectation of when we may have deliverables, that sort of thing. Because I think you're right. I think the town was heavily invested in this a year ago, and it's been kind of a lapse in the last couple of months. And of course, I think people say, oh, civic moxie's gone, maybe the master planning process is done, and we certainly don't want that impression out there.
Yeah.
So I think a revised timeline, I think, would help at least indicate that yes, we are still moving forward, albeit with some delays, and but we still intend to complete the process.
Yes, absolutely. I think we have 3 weeks. Bob, I'm looking at you, Bob, because you're the only one of that group on the call here. And we're going to come before the planning board on October 5th. So that's our deadline for having a revised scope and proposal for hiring and reorganization of the committee and the schedule, all of that by then.
Very good.
I would just like to say that I do think the pause has been quite beneficial in some ways, because I think it's given us a chance to really step back and build our own internal capacity a bit more robustly. And certainly I think our community engagement process is going to be more, even though it's going to be there's going to be a lot of it that's virtual, I think it's going to be more effective and more robust and reach more people than it would have if we had just kind of kept going steamrolling through the schedule we had prior to COVID.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Yeah, the community, has been wrestling with a lot of things, and school openings and that sort of thing, which has kind of gotten everybody's attention in the last month or two. And but I'm glad to hear that things are moving along, and you've got some good folks working on it. No question about it.
Yep, a lot of a good, dedicated, hardworking group of people for sure.
Yeah. Good. Anybody have questions?
I have a couple questions for Jan.
Hey, David.
So one is a rookie question. Does the master planning committee report to the planning board or to the board of selectmen or nobody, or what's the?
To the planning board.
Okay, so the ultimate decisions about, well, two-part following question. To the degree that there's guidance as to the conclusions you reach, does that come from the planning board, or are you pretty independent of that?
We'll make we'll have a very complete recommendation, well-vetted recommendation from the master plan steering committee, but we will report to the planning board, and it will be the planning board that approves it.
Okay, and do they?
If I could just jump in for a minute on the question of the revised scope and the revised timeline. The planning board on August 24th had some preliminary discussions that we really want to bring you guys into the loop when we make the decision or approve, how it's going to go forward. We didn't determine, exactly what the next step should be, but we talked about, maybe having a joint meeting with you, giving the materials we've requested to you guys, because even though it's our decision, we definitely, want you guys involved in the decision.
So Madeline, when you say you guys, you mean the select board?
Yes, you
Okay.
guys and gals.
So, well, let me go back to my prior. So Jan, you're saying kind of deliver a package from either Jan or Madeline. Is it anticipated that the planning board would weigh in and say, okay, we agree with X, we don't agree with Y, we recommend you change Z? Is it to that, or it's like a package? This is our recommendation.
Well, Madeline, maybe you can help me with this one. We were in front of the planning board a couple weeks ago. I don't know whether we're going to go in front of them again or talk talk to the planning board before October 5th. I think we would hope that, I mean, Madeline's the liaison to the planning board. So I guess what I'm saying is that we would hope that there isn't too much picking it apart and sending us back to the drawing board, but that's obviously their prerogative.
Okay, so there is oversight in the true way then.
Absolutely.
Then
David,
the
you're
fi-
asking about the final report.
No, they're talking
I don't
about
really,
the new
I mean, the
scope.
process is somewhat opaque to me. So, I know that there's activity and I participated in the kitchen table conversations and I understand, I think the mechanics, but I never really stopped to consider then, okay, once all the information's amalgamated and conclusions are reached, is it interactive or is it a self-contained thing like a consultant report?
Oh, I'm
Here's
sorry,
what
David, are you talking about the scope and timeline? Or are you talking
No,
about
more the
final?
conclusion. I mean, to me,
Oh.
yeah, I think that.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, what I was going to say is that what's being prepared right now is basically a revised scope of work and
Oh, okay. All
timeline.
right. So not that, well, but when you get to whatever to me, the end product, I think is a kind of a recommended roadmap of things to do, right? This is what
Correct.
Carla
Yeah.
believes it wants, and it's like, is that interactive with planning board or is that,
There,
again,
Yes.
so between now and whenever we finish that, when we finish the final master plan, there will have been many planning board, many board of selectmen, many FinCom,
Okay.
many other boards and committee meetings. There will have been public meetings. There will have been have been surveys and review of options. And the final deliverables, the draft report will have been vetted and sent around
Okay.
and commented on.
All
So
right,
it's
so
going to have
lots
a
of-
high amount of
all right,
of action.
good. And then, okay, good, thank you. And then on a more specific question, you mentioned the financial model that Lynn is helping you with. Is this financial model have sensitivity analysis as to changes to baseline assumptions? I mean, give us a little context about what the model, how the model
Yeah,
is.
I mean, I don't know whether Lynn, you're able to pipe in, but basically it's an Excel model that Carrie mostly set up. That's pretty much organized according to the warrant book. So it lists all the costs and revenue streams for the town. There are a number of things that are assumptions that can be changed and variables that can be altered. It's obviously that the financial assessment of master plan options or moves, the things that we make decisions about is one part of analyzing or just having discussions in the town about what direction we want to take. It's a very important part, but it's only one part. And the financial model will be one tool of many tools in our toolbox, the master plan steering committees, the master plans toolbox, but it has also been developed in collaboration with FinCom so that they, I think, as they move forward to build their projection, their ability to do longer term projections, this will be a great asset for them. So yes, it does have quite a bit of sensitivity. I'm not an economist or a financial person, so I don't exactly know what that means, but
Well, to me, it means that if you say, for example, we're going to encourage commercial development, what are the models, what are the inputs that would lead to a conclusion of how much revenue that could develop? Or if we believe the town ought to acquire more open space, then there's a cost variable. It just adds kind of framework or quantitative corollary, let's say? I mean, it's easy to provide blanket statements about, well, we should have more affordable housing, let's say. Okay, great. But then what does that mean in a model? Like,
Right.
that's,
And what I can say, having spent a little time with Carrie on this last week, just to get my own understanding improved, is that you'll very much be able to plug in, if we were to do X,
okay.
the impact on revenue, on, expense, and going
Okay,
forward
good.
over a period of years, et cetera.
Okay,
It'll be a good tool for that.
right.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
not the only tool either that we're developing. I think that's really important to say that, we're going to be working with Jerry Lehrman around, a model or a spreadsheet that allows us to look at options for investments and divestments of public facilities. And we're going to also be looking at a quantitative analysis of housing. And that's quite a complex analysis, because it involves land parcels, and it involves zoning, and it involves different types of housing, and it involves costs and other social factors and other factors. So there's a lot of work to be done, but our objective is to create a fairly good a quantitative analysis of options, so that people aren't just sort of pointing their finger at something and
Okay,
saying, I like that.
okay, good. All right, thank you. Just give me Jan, final question is this another year, or what's your anticipated timeline through all this stuff we talked about?
That's, well, I don't think it's a year of work. I mean, Bob, I'm not sure you're ready to talk about it yet, Bob, right? It's probably
Yeah, I think
6
it's
to 8
fair
months
to-
of work, but the question is, when do we start it? When do we start up and finish? We've
one of the
got to
things
be
too.
done before a year. I'm sorry, but I just have to say that.
I was going to say a year sounds like.
Bob, what do you want to say?
No, I was just going to say the advisory group is looking at a range of timelines and trying to play off the pros and cons of each one, and we haven't got through that discussion, so it is really premature to project. So hopefully we won't keep you in the dark too much longer.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck, and
And goodbye.
I mean, personally, I've been looking forward to this since I first got on the select board 3 years ago. Been hanging a lot of, hopes on, the results of this to help us guide and steer our town through, the shoals of economic shoals. And so, yeah, chin up and carry on, huh? Yes.
Great.
And pip pip. Alan, your microphone's not working.
You're right. My wife came in and I didn't want her to be disturbing us because I thought she was rumbling through the back here. But I was just going to say this. It's going to be very interesting because things aren't going to be the same. Whether even after we have a vaccine, people are not going to be working the same way they were. There's going to be clearly more remote working. There's going to be commuting patterns are going to change dramatically. So it's going to be interesting, and none of that existed when you started.
That's true. Yeah.
So how the model adapts, and of course, I mean, a model's a model, and obviously you can plug all kinds of
Right.
data into it and see what
Right.
the outcomes look like. So it's a fascinating challenge, and but we look forward to the outcomes. Very good, and thank you for all your work.
Well, takes a village.
It does indeed. All righty. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jan, Madeline. Thank
Okay, good night, everyone.
Yep. Good
Good
night.
night.
Board, thank you to the planning board.
Yep. The next thing on the agenda is at 8:30, joint meeting of FinCom, long-term caps, municipal facilities, CPA, the moderator, the clerk.
No, 8 o'clock comes first before 8:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm jumping ahead here. I put my check mark on. Municipal aggregation. Bob, is that you?
Alan, on the call, in addition to Bob and Glenn, we've got Mark Capadonna from Colonial Power Group,
Oh, welcome.
who you can find Mark there, and
And
Denise
there's Glenn.
Howard,
Okay.
also from Colonial. And Mark provided the exhibit in your packet comparing the market pricing for retail power supply products, including the two that we currently offer Carlisle residents, and then kind of an increasingly greener and more renewable array of products up to and including 100% renewable local offering. And I've shared this with Bob and Glenn, and apologize for the confusion in getting this to this point. But I know that if you'd like, Bob can walk through the exhibit with you. I'm sorry, Mark, and Bob and Glenn, I know will have some input as well.
Please go.
Yeah, absolutely. So if everyone has it, it's just a
Yep.
just an Excel spreadsheet with some prices on it. We just asked one of the suppliers to provide some indicative pricing from sometime last week, which was 8/28. Just to show you, so it's a start date, the column in red. I'm not sure if it's in color or not, but the start term is just the date it's going to start with the end of the contract on 1/1/2021, and then the end dates. And we have 6 months, and we have a split 12-month, right? That's 6 months that goes from January till June, and then from July right through December. Those are those two rates from 11/7 and 10/4. And just about in the middle there somewhere is, what it would be for a straight 12 months, 11 cents. This is on that standard. This would be the same product that you would see for Eversource. That would be a match. This is what Eversource would provide. It has the minimum RPS requirements, but it does meet the requirements required by the DOER, the DPU, to serve retail load. The next one down is just the 18-month. We see 11.2. Things starting to step back down here now at 10.9 to 24 months. 30 months we're at 11. We're at 10.9, and then at 36 months we're at 10.6. That's for the standard product, and that was your opt-down product. That would match up with your current product. The price is currently 10.8, 7.9. That is the optional product. That would kind of be a match. And then what you chose is the next one down. That's 100% National Wind product. This is Windrex, most likely out of Pennsylvania or Oklahoma, Texas area where there's an abundance of them. As you can see, each one of those just same terms, but if you go down, it's just slightly above, a little more than $1.5 million. If you go to the 36 months, the lowest one, you're at 10.8. I don't want to, but then we kind of step up into what I would say are things that these are all local, and they continue to step up. But up in the top, the grayest bar, it talks about mass class ones. It meets RPS plus 5% more VREX. So just simply,
Mark, could you define RPS?
Yes, the Renewable Portfolio Standard. That's
Okay.
what the DOER and DPU make us. You have to meet the Renewable Portfolio Standard in order to be compliant to serve load. So this has 5% more of the mass class ones. Those are VREX because they're above and beyond, and that's their pricing. You can see eerily similar, 5% is eerily similar to like what I'd call a national product with the National Wind, 5%. So if it's local and green, it's fairly pricey, right? You can see the National Wind is at 10.8 and the local just at 5% is at 10.8. Just heading down, I'm just going to hit them all. You go to 25% more, you're at 11.8. That's about a penny. So at 20%, you can figure in about a penny more if you know where I'm heading here. So when you go to 50% more mass class ones, you're almost at 13 cents or 12.955. And then the final would be 100% local green, and that would be at 15.2. So what we're saying there is it's 100% mass class one, which is probably as green as anyone could possibly imagine to be. And that was the pricing on just so we got it all straight on August 28th by one of the suppliers, just to kind of show you where the market currently is.
And
No,
Mark,
go ahead. Yep.
well, this is Barney Arnold. I just wanted to ask, so this is indicative pricing as of the 28th, and I may have missed it at the beginning, but what is the current contract that we now are on?
Yep. So the current contract went from July of 2018 through
Yeah.
January 2021.
Yeah, and what's our pricing there?
So the pricing that everyone got moved into, the opt-out product, if you will,
Yeah,
is the National Wind, and that would match up to what you're looking at. It's the second tranche down. So it's the 100% National Wind Rex.
okay,
That's the one that you're currently in.
yeah,
And then you could, if you wanted to, they wanted to make sure they gave an option. You could opt down. Anyone on a fixed income or low income could opt down to that rate, which is 10.879. That's the current rate. If this was effective, it's not. You could have got 10.651 on August 28th, kind of lowering the rate ever so much.
okay.
Hey, Mark,
Hey, how are you, Dave?
David Modell, thank you. So is this the pricing for individuals in town or for the town as a consumer of power?
I believe the town goes out and gets its own power, David, on its own. This is for individuals and businesses within the town.
Okay. So, and the reason why homegrown wind is so much more expensive than some wind that comes from Texas, even accounting for transmission and everything, is what?
Well, it's just, so I wouldn't say it's all that much. Well, I would say the land is more expensive. It's local wages and so forth. It's just the abundance of wind in Texas and Oklahoma. The wind blows all night. So there's just an abundance of renewable energy credits, or these RECs. So they come very cheap. And we just don't get the same capacity factor out of New England as they would there.
So from a practical standpoint, if you generate a kilowatt hour of wind in Texas and you transmit it over does it actually come here, or is it just some kind of credit trades that's going on?
It's just a credit trade. The power stays in, if it's in Texas, it stays in ERCOT. If it's up here in ISO New England, it is local and it is on the grid.
So by taking this 100% wind that's source agnostic, we're actually using the local, but we're paying the national rate. Is that effectively what happens?
So technically what you're saying is correct, but what I'll say is there's some other benefits to local green. We have jobs, we have the economy, we have displacement of other, New England has a natural gas capacity issue. So if we have wind blowing at certain times, we don't need to kick on some of our dirtier assets during those, very warm summer evenings that we really start to burn, what I'll call questionable assets, if you will.
So okay, so I'm trying to understand, there's a certain amount of wind capacity in New England, whether it's spotty or otherwise. When we buy the national brand, the cheap brand, we aren't using the Texas wind, but we've signed up for 100% wind. So are we only using wind, or are we really not using wind? We're just supplying wind credits and we're buying a mix of dirty and clean sources.
The latter. So everyone takes the regular, what I'll call it, system mix. And the only way to
Okay.
call our power anything is to use those RECs. There's no, other than solar on your roof, you know what I mean, that you're actually using at that time, there's no way to get clean power to your house.
Right, so we're patting ourselves on the back for being green, but we're not really being green, is what you're saying, if we go with that option, right?
Yeah, I guess if you want to say, you know, some people think of, you know, a megawatt of renewable energy is a megawatt of renewable energy. I think there's some benefit to having it here locally, but, you know.
Okay, maybe I misstated then. What I'm saying, yes, a megawatt of, if we sign up for a megawatt of renewable energy and we pay the national rate, and then, but we don't actually use the megawatt from Texas, we use some mix of things. It might be, but you're saying it's all renewable. It wouldn't be natural gas or coal or something like that.
Correct. So we're going to get that renewable energy credit from the wind farm. So that means that 1 megawatt of wind was produced in Texas, although you got the credit for it here in Massachusetts.
No, I get we get the credit, but when I actually turn on my light bulb,
Yeah, it has nothing to do with it. Zero.
it could come from anywhere.
It only comes from ISO New England. It has nothing to do with the energy credit you would.
No, I know, but it does not necessarily have to be renewable even at that point, right?
Yeah, it has nothing to do. Yeah, they are mutually exclusive. Your renewable
So
energy.
we're feeling green, but we're not really being green, I guess. I'm not putting a value judgment on it. It's just,
Yeah, no. So I would say it's the only way that we can. The best way I can put it is the only way is to support those projects, and that's how they set these things up, so that we buy their RECs to support those projects.
yeah, but so do everybody else, right? So at some point, I guess, when everybody goes that way, they'll run out of credits and then they'll force a higher price point if you want the next layer of credits, which might be New England credits or something else, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, but we're not
That's
there
the
yet.
hope.
Okay, so when I get these things in the mail, as I often do about, you know, change your utility, do this, do that, is that what this is, or is that some other free market?
That's actually, I'll call it proprietary in between a private company and yourself. Just be real careful on the small print on those deals. The Attorney General has come out and said people have not saved money on average 99% of the time on those. Now,
Okay,
you may
so what
want-
is this one? Is this the official Carlisle approved? How would one, you said it's for individuals, so if I wanted to switch to the 100% wind or whatever.
You could go right on Colonial Power Group's website and opt in and opt out. There's no fee, there's no penalty. It's just.
So that's Colonial. I thought Colonial was only for Concord, but it's for us too?
We have a very similar name, but it has nothing to do with Concord. No, it does not. This is just colonialpowergroup.com. We're just your aggregation broker.
I see, okay, all right, thank you. I'll
You're
yield
welcome.
to somebody else.
This is Bob. Bob Zug. I just wanted to add maybe a clarification on the voluntary purchase of RECs. The way I look at it, it's the equivalent of buying carbon offsets when you go on an airplane flight, for example. And there's different ways you can buy carbon offsets, and some you can argue have bigger environmental impacts than others. And I think the voluntary purchase of RECs, which is how a community of our size would increase its renewable content, is somewhat analogous to that. Would you agree, Mark?
Yeah, it is very true. Yes. Yes.
So that's one way to think about it. And there's a lot of controversy, and Glenn and I have immersed ourselves in this, a lot of controversy about the different sources for RECs and what their relative environmental values are. They're clearly at different price points, so there's obviously some perceived difference, but that's a long story, and that's one of the things we're hoping to discuss more as we go forward here.
We keep talking about individual opt-in, opt-out, but the way we do it now is the entire town went one way, or you could opt out. Is that correct? Yeah.
Well, if you were already with another third-party supplier, you would have been,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
you know,
No, I understand.
excluded. They could always join, but only
Right.
basic service customers were moved.
Yeah.
originally.
And something like 98% of the town opted in, correct?
I think you had a 3% opt-out, but I don't know. We don't know what the actual. I don't know how many people were on
Yeah.
If you're gonna use the average, 20% of the customers were already on competitive supply. And then you
Okay.
had about a 3% opt-out. That's correct.
This is through National Grid. Who supplies our power?
Eversource.
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 So,
Yep.
we made the decision for, when Eversource sends me a bill, it's already, I didn't opt out or anything. That's already been decided by,
Yeah, if you look at, there's two charges on your bill. There's the generation charge and the delivery charge.
Yeah.
And the generation charge is
Yeah.
what this is.
okay, all right.
Eversource is still the deliverer.
Correct.
So we already opted into this 100% wind REX, right?
Yes.
This contract ends January with the January meter reads. And then
I
you
see.
can make another choice.
I see.
So, did I understand, Bob, that you're going to look into advantages or disadvantages of doing the, let's say, the 100% mass class one as opposed to the national wind that we are currently in? I mean, I've heard that, some people believe that if we did the mass class 100%, then we would encourage or incentivize more generation of green energy in Massachusetts. I don't particularly buy that argument. So are you going to look into that and kind of make some sort of determination or recommendation about whether that argument is specious or not?
Well, to be honest, we've already tried to look into that, and I don't think we're going to resolve that, quite honestly. It's just not clear to us. I think what we have to do is make a judgment call. I think it's fair to say that when you're in a market like we are in New England, where if you buy New England Class 1 RECs, you are clearly stimulating the market for new generation, because the supply of renewables, Class 1 renewables, is less than the demand. Whereas when you go to Texas, you have a case where there's already more wind than there is demand for the REC, so the prices are a lot lower. And, people make different arguments about what that really means in terms of impact. I think what we can do, again, this is not, my decision, obviously, or Glenn's decision, but what I think would make sense is to offer perhaps, free products this time around, if that works, where individuals could make a choice to opt into 100% Class 1 renewable, for example, understanding that they're going to pay a steep price premium relative to what we're paying now, 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour premium. And I think the question in my mind that remains is whether we, for the default product, whether we stay with 100% national wind or whether we try to blend in some additional Class 1 or even some other source of REC that we haven't even talked about yet. And keep in mind, this is the first time that Glenn and I have spoken with Colonial Power. So, there's a lot of, I actually think procedurally it would help if Glenn and Tim and I had a separate meeting, and then we also had a separate meeting with Mark, and we can ask a lot more detailed questions and that we have about these. So we're not prepared tonight to answer all the questions. This is the first time we're seeing the data too. We did see it a few days ahead of time, as you did, but
Okay.
that's still the first time we've had the chance to discuss the data.
Yeah. The other thing is, the last time we made this decision, we had what I call the brown electricity, which is their top tranche there on the thing, was way more expensive than the national wind. And it seemed like a no-brainer to negotiate a better price for the town citizens for a greener product, whether it was, local or not, but, than to have the brown product for the brown product. This one, it looks a little more. And now, Mark, I know, had other companies last time. We had 3 different companies that we looked at, as I recall, and you kind of looked for the best. And so I guess one of the questions I have for Mark is, do you think that we can get a better price this time around as well? for the greener product than National Grid.
I think you'll end up beating the price. It's going to be a winter price and you're going to have summer in it. I think what you're looking for is stability and savings, make no mistake. But I think once you mix in summer, Eversource's winter rate is probably going to be somewhere in the high 11s or 12s here, coming up this winter. So I do think that, you have something that can deliver the savings and stability that you've been looking for. All of that being said, all we just need is a little direction. We're happy to bring, again, we're agnostic to what supply you're looking for. We'll get any of them and all of them for you to look at. This is just indicative. I do expect to have more suppliers. We just wanted to have something just to show you kind of where the market currently was.
Right. Okay.
This is actually very useful. I mean, this gives us a good idea of what the pros and cons of going with various options are, and what that comes down to in real dollars and cents.
That's all we were just, hopeful to, so that you could give us some direction. Now, maybe it sounds to me like Bob wants to get together one other time before we head out, if you know what I'm saying. They want to have a few discussions internally before we head out to the marketplace again, because ultimately, until we get some direction, we don't know exactly what products we should bring back to you.
Is it
Clarification. Yeah. Sorry.
is it possible? I mean, last time we went with one option for the wind, or you could opt out and go with, if you weren't already on other plans, go with Eversource. Are you saying we would have this time, we might have an option of having 2 or 3 choices?
So currently right now, you do have 2 choices. So you have the National Wind product is what everyone got put into. But if you were on a fixed income or were a low income customer and still wanted to participate in the program, you also had the ability to opt down to that. I'll say opt down, but opt into that, what I'll call an RPS product, or the same, the renewable portfolio standard, just basic service. And that price was, slightly lower. That price right there. So everyone got moved into 10,981. And if you wanted to take the optional product, you could have paid 10,879, but $1 million less.
Yep.
Per kilowatt hour.
And how many people in Carlisle did that? Do you know?
Barney, I want to apologize. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm saying to you, I will get you the information. I have access to it. I didn't ask that question, but I certainly can get that information for you.
Well, as of March 2020, I think the number was 25 accounts. So it's a very small part of our
Right.
community has opted for the low-cost product.
And Bob, do you remember, I think we had a number as to how much collectively the town saved from the original amount that everybody was paying for the brown, what I call brown electricity. I think it was close to what, 125K overall for the life of the contract?
So what I did is I looked at the last report that Colonial Power had sent us, and it had data through March of 2020. So I just took the 12-month period ending March 2020. And for that time period, Carlisle saved on whole about $150,000, just shy of that, by going through community choice aggregation rather than buying through Eversource.
And that covered 2 years of it, or a little more than
It's
2
just,
years of
just 1 year, just 1 year.
1 year.
It's not
Okay.
the- yeah.
And what we had signed before was a 3-year contract that ends this
Right.
2018 to 2021. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was 30 months, 30
It
months.
was 30
first
months.
month. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
But
Mark,
it's important.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. It's important to note that because Eversource's basic service rate fluctuates every 6 months, it's impossible to predict exactly what the savings will be. Even during the last 2 years, we've had a period of time where it was actually slightly cheaper to buy through Eversource, but on whole, we've saved money. So that's what, the Eversource rate is a moving target, so you don't know.
how far
currently-
in advance do we have to sign up from the expiration?
It's an open market. At a minimum, we need to be out about 6 weeks or so that if it's a new supplier, we can get them set up and put them in place. That's about the time frame we need, but we could have signed at any point during those 30 months.
But at the latest, we need to do it about 6 weeks in advance if we're going to
Correct.
change vendors.
Yeah. The only thing I would tell you, we're starting to see the market, as we start to head into the winter, we're starting to see the market tick up here.
Right, yeah.
Just so you're aware.
If we do it early, we can lock in, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
It's up to you. Yeah, that's correct. You can take pricing and if Tim doesn't like it or whoever is going to be the decision maker doesn't like it, we go back out to bid a week later and see if pricing is better. So if you
So
like
the
what you
advantage
see,
is to move more quickly then. And Tim, is this also the pricing for the municipal, or is it, you have your own consortium going on?
We've been under agreement with Constellation Energy for a number of years now. And we've talked about moving the municipal contract at some point, but it has not
And is
happened
that-
yet.
I mean, is that pricing more favorable or not?
I would say it's comparable. I don't think it's much more favorable.
I mean,
And when
shouldn't-
does that expire, Tim?
I'd have to take a look at that, Alan. I
Okay.
don't think it's not the end of this year. But
I know the reason they didn't go last time was because they did have this a contract that had a year or more to run. Yeah.
mhm.
I mean, as a general
Except
note,
on the-
advising citizens to do X, we should be, as we used to say, eat your own dog food, right? I mean, you should do,
Right,
We should-
it's good enough for the residents. It should be good enough for us, right?
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions? Well, thank you. This is good information and look forward to the recommendations coming in from Bob and Glenn and thank you, Mark, for all your services.
we
yes,
appreciate having
thank you
us.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good night. All right, we're a little early for the next item. We've got about another 5 minutes to go. But I see some of the FinCom is there already.
While we're waiting, Alan, can I, just a quick question about the previous item on the agenda?
Sure.
So did I hear an agreement that Bob and Glenn were going to meet with Mark and Tim, I guess, to discuss
Right.
more details about this? Is that right, Tim?
Yes, I'll set up a meeting, probably a Zoom meeting between all of us
Okay.
coming out of this meeting. You know, I'll be in touch with Bob and Glenn and find out what's good for them and Mark. And we'll do that as soon as possible. And then, yeah, I don't know about next meeting, but certainly within a meeting or two, I think we'd be back in front of the board.
I think it would be helpful to have, have a short meeting with just Tim, Glenn, and I, and then meet with Colonial Power after we talk and agree to our game plan and questions and all that.
Okay.
Make sense?
All right.
And we welcome Luke.
Do you want a motion for the Community Preservation Committee?
We can do that. Let's see, that's on our 9:30. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's appointments and resignations.
yeah.
We can do some of those right now. We got 5 minutes. Probably.
Okay.
Gonna do-
I move
okay.
the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint the following individuals to the Community Preservation Committee. Peter Yell at 44 Cross Street as a planning board representative, and Samantha Rottenberg, 108 Hemlock Hill Road, as a citizen at large. And I didn't put the Housing Trust representative because they haven't had a meeting to recommend.
Yeah, we can do that. We're having the first Housing Trust meeting next Tuesday. So we can figure that out and come back to you with that.
And Kate, did you want to be nominated for that?
Well, I'll bring that up with the housing.
Okay, well, for the house, okay,
Yes.
very good. All right, we have a motion to appoint Peter Yellen and Samantha Rodenberg to the CPC. Have a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Oscalillo, aye.
Louis, I.
Modell, aye.
Reed, I.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I can do the Highland as well. I'm still in the process of populating that committee, but we have a number of people who have already expressed interest. John Ballantyne from the Master Planning Committee, Joan Ingersoll from COA, Brian Sorrows, obviously from the Fire Department, Jack Huntress from the School Committee, and John Trost from the Historical Society. So I've got a few more to go. Finance, planning, municipal facilities, and long-term caps, and I'm working on getting volunteers from each of those, and we'll populate those when we can. If you want, why don't we hold off on appointing these formally until we fill out the rest of the positions.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And long-term capital requirements committee. We have an appointment for that?
No, I think
If not-
Scott wanted to talk about changing it.
Yeah, that's in the
That's on,
upcoming agenda. This was under appointments and resignations.
Oh.
yeah, I guess we're unsure if Kate had been formally appointed to that board, although it might be a moot point after this town meeting, but.
I got sworn in today, so
Okay, all right. I guess you
I guess
did.
we're done
guess
then.
I'm on
I
it.
guess you're done.
All right, very good. Okay, I see Scott and Jim and any other, see who else. Oh, Kimberly
Victor?
Kane is on.
I think Wayne is supposed to come, right?
Wayne is supposed to
Correct.
come.
Victor's on, right?
Victor and Lynn is there too.
Yep,
So we
Victor and Lynn, good.
have a finance committee quorum.
And who's Victor, is that you, 6155?
No.
Peggy Wang, town
Peggy.
clerk.
That's Peggy, yeah.
Oh, it's Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, this is a joint committee, so I guess, Jim, do you want to call your meeting to order?
Yes, so we have, I guess we should take a roll call of our limited number of participants, but we do have a quorum. So I guess Dar, aye.
Liang, aye.
Lipinski, aye.
Viola, aye.
So there we are, Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
We're small in number, but ready to go.
You're quality, not quantity. This is good. Yeah. Very good. And let's see, I haven't seen. Jerry Lerman is there. Looking to see if Wayne was coming in. I don't see him yet. All right. Well, why don't we start with FinCom, and Jim, the floor is
Okay.
yours.
All right, thank you.
Oh, there's
I'll just-
Wayne.
Do you want to go with Wayne or do you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let me just kind of give you a sense of where we are. We know that we're working on a short time frame and just have a couple more weeks to recommend a revised budget for the special town meeting. As a reminder to everyone, the budget that was voted in June was pretty much a flat budget to fiscal 20. It was, the bottom line was a little bit down, driven mainly by the reduced debt service. As we all know, those are numbers that are totally beyond our control. As we've talked in a couple of meetings here, I think we, as a committee, generally agree that the amount of uncertainty that we had in June really hasn't changed very much. And that the watchword we have to have going into this next meeting is continued caution. You know, we have to be prepared for things that may happen that will drive our costs up potentially, especially thinking about the schools, but there could be other factors that would drive our costs up. We're encouraged that the revenue reflected in property tax so far is pretty solid, a little bit below the target, but not much, not enough to be concerned about at this point. Another area of concern, though, as far as the costs that are being incurred largely as a result of the COVID-19 is that the FEMA and CARES monies have turned out to be extremely difficult to take advantage of, both administratively, just in applying for them, but also in what is covered and what is not. And it seems like though that changes almost day to day. So the town was given a substantial allocation of funds. Whether we can use it all, even if we need it, is not clear. It's another element of uncertainty as we go ahead. So I think even though we haven't taken votes in the committee, I think the sentiment is to try to keep our actual expenditures about level to the number that was approved in June. And that would, and as a message to the community at large, that we all understand that we are facing this uncertain period and we do not want to take any risks or go out, bring them out with us onto a limb. Now, there are ways we can do things, though. There are things we have to add in to the budget. There are the COLAs that were approved in June. There are some increased hours for several staff members that were approved. There are contracts specifically for dispatchers and police that went into effect July 1 and pushed some costs up. Beyond that, there are some points to discuss around long-term capital and the municipal facilities. But we also have some maneuvering room. To an extent, we have found that we have a little bit more of a windfall from the high school than we anticipated, because they already have told us that our number for the high school for fiscal 21 will be down about 300,000 from what we had thought. However, the number we approved in June at town meeting was based on fiscal 20 before the new allocation or apportionment of the two towns went into effect. So in fact, it seems that we have something closer to 500,000 that we might have to maneuver with around the rest of the budget as a result of the high school. And we also have free cash. And the free cash number right now is healthy. And we certainly would like to apply that either to some of the costs that I just mentioned, and also to find ways that we can incorporate it in the budget to create funds we could use to deal with the unexpected over the course of this fiscal year. So, you know, there's a lot we can talk about. In a way, we don't have a lot of time to do it. I'm hoping that next week we can actually, on Monday night's meeting, come up with a recommended budget to bring back to you. But I think right now, our hope is to be able to come up with a budget that is pretty flat to what was approved in June. And I would encourage the other members of the committee on here to comment on that if they'd like. They're all muted. I hope they're not asleep.
I think Jim, you covered it.
Yeah.
I'll just comment on Carlisle School, and I'm going to be following up with them again this week. I think in that case, they have a number of opening expenses related to COVID that you probably read about and heard about. Most of that has been covered by DESI grant. We received around $145,000. The costs are a little bit north of that. I think with regard to CPS, there's just a lot of unknowns in terms of probably the biggest question going forward, aside from any unexpected additional hard costs, are just the potential costs related to teachers and staff taking leaves under the FFRC, which is a new leave opportunity for people who have to look after children or loved ones or themselves due to COVID. that's a paid leave that could potentially incur costs. They've done a good job communicating with the teachers and the teachers union, and they have a sense of what that looks like out of the gate, and they feel comfortable with where that is, but obviously that can change. And so I think with CPS, I think the feeling is work with the budget you have. And I think as a FinCom committee, we just need to make sure we have enough contingency in place if and when some of these unexpected costs arise and we need to make budget transfers or additional special town meetings later in the year. But for now, it just seems premature to do anything like that.
And just reinforcing that, I think that those unexpected expenses are going to arise in some form. You know, there is one scenario or one potential that the school would have to go all virtual, let's say, just hypothetically. That would have a, you know, in the short term, a positive impact potentially on the budget. Then you have other things like the ability of staff members to take those leaves that Scott mentioned that could push us the other way. And then there are costs that they're going to have to incur that at this point, nobody, you know, knows yet that may be imposed on them. So my assumption is we are going to have to do more with the school at some point this fiscal year, but we don't know what it is. So we need to be prepared.
Jim, leaving the school personnel unknowns out, do you have an estimate of what the COLA and other personnel costs that we approved in June amount to?
I think it's going to be around 100,000.
100,000?
Okay.
Now that doesn't, though, Alan, include the dispatcher's contract or the police.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay.
Right.
But that shouldn't add a huge amount. I mean, it's certainly it's something, but it's not going to double it or anything.
No.
But in a flat, with a flat, let's just say it's as presented. I realize it may change a little. But essentially in a flat budget, that is a 2% reduction in operating costs for collectively, whether it's shared or not, right?
2% of personnel costs. Yeah.
If you approve a flat budget,
well, no, actually, I mean, David, I think the idea is that we would increase their budgets by that 2%.
Yes.
But we can offset that with reduced cost for the high school and ultimately free cash.
Okay, all right, so with savings, I understand. Let me say it in sort of simple language for me. We're saving 75,000 roughly in the high school budget. Kim is saying that the COLAs are roughly 100 or some number like that. So you're kind of working inside that envelope to make the total budget flat or as flat as close to 2020 as you can with paying for the COLAs, right?
Right, and potentially other things too, like Scott will talk, I think, in a minute about long-term capital, and I know that you have facilities on the agenda. You know, we are, as a committee, we're concerned about those, but nevertheless expecting to try to be able to accommodate something.
And that's what we're going to be really looking at on Monday is moving around the line items and taking care of the costs that we know we need to add in. And at the same time, looking at the bottom line budget and seeing where that nets out. But I think with the things that Jim mentioned, we think we can achieve the goal.
And are you using, what are you using as your assumption for revenue, that for the town's revenue, that will continue to be okay in terms of our collections, you know, through the end of June?
The collections are looking good. I don't see a reason right now for them to change. I will reduce, and talk to Priscilla, reduce the local receipts down probably 100 to 150,000 because we had raised them this year, so that we're not inflating that number or going on a strong number. We'll do a real conservative estimate on the local receipts. But the revenues, you have a good collection rate. And so far, and with the trends when I went back, it doesn't seem like it's been affected in the past, and it's not showing it's being affected right now.
And let's also mention, because it's come up before, that, you know, a lot of people seem to think fiscal 22 generally speaking, both in many towns and at the state level, will be worse than 21.
Yeah.
So we have that in the back of our minds, and there are various ways to think about it, Barney. For instance, if we only need to raise the same amount of revenue as we did in fiscal 20, between new growth and the allowable change under Prop 2 and F, our levy capacity will go up anyway. So in effect, that creates an excess levy capacity that, under some conditions could be used in fiscal 22 or 23 if we find that the property tax revenue or other things or state aid are going south on us significantly. So that's another way that you can sort of build in some, future contingency. And we have that- yeah.
Between new growth and the 2.5, it's like $1 million onto your levy each year. So it was basically around 1.8 you had last year, and you'll be close to 3 million this year if we go on a similar levy capacity that we assess to the taxpayers.
And so in the best scenario,
Right, but
if we don't need that, excuse me, David, if we don't need that, well then, and fiscal 22 is much better than we are anticipating, well then there's a chance to deal with some of the issues we're putting off now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And free cash is looking good for the next year also. With what we ended up with revenues ending FY20. Priscilla hasn't closed the books, but just if you use about the same free cash as you did other years and what was turned back, you're probably going to have a healthy free cash next year as well. So looking forward to FY22, you want to set yourself up in a similar good position to, go into the budget season.
Yeah, that's a mechanical point worth mentioning, is that in this upcoming town meeting in October, we still have the ability to spend last year's free cash, which normally we wouldn't have had. But because of all the emergency decrees, et cetera, we can still do that.
Yeah, so on that free cash question, Jim, it's always been sort of, I don't know if it's unwritten, I would say unwritten rule of the FinCom to not apply free cash to extraordinary circumstances, right?
Right.
Not make it a structural piece of the budget. And I certainly support that. So are you saying that the free cash you for the COVID exceptional, that you'd be open to applying free cash to special COVID circumstances? Is that roughly what you're saying?
Well, and you've alluded to it, David. You were on the committee when the free cash was applied to the increased debt service because of the two schools, and we still have that debt service. I don't think it would be, it wouldn't be, unrealistic to apply some free cash to those debt payments, but it needs to be things like that, not for sort of everyday operating costs. In the budget that we approved in June, we did, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, you finish.
I was just going to say, we reduced the OPEB amount, a place where we have in the past applied free cash. But I think in general, if we can find legitimate ways to, say, increase the reserves or something else to tie free cash to those uncertainties, it would be good.
And I just want to say that we generated a lot of that free cash when we stopped all discretionary expenditures kind of mid-March, right? We asked departments not to spend, to basically resist spending a lot of money.
Well, that was very helpful, Kate, but we will enjoy that free cash next year.
Next year.
Oh, okay.
That will be our fiscal 21 free cash, and it's good that we'll have it, but that's for next year.
So back to the comment made about unknowns that Jim just said. So two things I didn't hear specifically from Kim. State aid, you mentioned local receipts are okay right now. And I forget what the other one was, but state aid, do you anticipate that the Commonwealth will, at least for the current year, be able to maintain its level of state aid? I mean the fiscal 20.
I do. If they don't, they'll cripple all towns, but right now, it's showing that they are.
I know they're not.
Still waiting on those numbers. And the local receipts, like I said, there was like almost 1.3 million, 1,289. We had raised it from the year before. And we'll probably bring that number down to like 1,1, just to be conservative on that.
Okay, good.
And
And
it
then-
still ties in with everything.
Well, also, David, just on your point, we have been told that the Chapter 70 money will be level funded to last year,
Right.
which is
Right.
good. But there are some other state aid forms to schools, lesser amounts that we don't know about yet. And there's no question the state is
And we
facing
know
a
that-
mammoth budget deficit.
Right. The school is relying on some funding for COVID-related expenses, I believe, but Ann Mahan has indicated, I think, Scott, correct me, uncovered increased expenses as a result of various COVID-related things, staffing and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, when we met 2 weeks ago, and that's, a lot changes by the week and by the day, but at that point, and I'm just going to use rough numbers, they had incurred about $150,000 in opening related expenses in terms of equipment, PPE, things like that. They used, I think, roughly $144,000 in DESI grant. So I think they've exhausted that amount. They got a grant per student that covered most of those expenses. I think the big expenses that are unknown going forward, or some of the bigger question marks, were related to staffing and the need to offer paid leaves as required by the FFRC, or in some cases, substitutes. Some of those related costs are unknown and you can't necessarily plan for because people can take those at any time. They had offered an opt-out for teachers, which I believe one teacher had taken, but that had a defined deadline by which they had to agree to that. So that's a little bit more known. But you just don't know. You don't know if more schools shut down and more teachers have to take leave to watch their kids in different towns, then there'll be some expenses there. I think their last rough estimate, and this number changes, was, they said maybe up to $150,000 in costs. I think the maximum per staff member for that benefit in terms of paid leave was $12,000. So, but they just don't know. It's all conjecture at this point. I think they have a good handle on who's going to be there at the outset. There are some people taking leave initially, but a lot will depend on how things unfold.
And a little bit of an update this morning that I think a few people here heard from Ann at the Fin team, but also from Priscilla for the town in general, is that some expenses that all of us in a common sense way would say, oh, those are definitely COVID-19, FEMA/CARES, they seem to be changing the rules, every week. And so it isn't clear that some of those will be covered. We would think they should be. And the game's not over yet, but that's creating both bureaucratic hassles for everybody and also more uncertainty.
But from your, Jim, so I understand, of course, that. And so from your approach then, and I think I heard this, and I'm not sure, but I thought I heard Jim O'Shea saying, it must have been in your meeting last week, that they were not going to ask for more than the level funding at the moment, but they were going to sort of deal. But, and I don't know if that's true, but is your approach, if those things occur and they break poorly for us, that would be where you tap your reserve? What's your philosophy there?
Yes, tap something. I think we are very sympathetic to the notion that the schools will need help at some point. So we wanted to create the ability to do that.
And we had, David, as a reminder, we had
your reserve fund balance, and
we had increased the
Thank you.
reserve fund balance to 300,000 in June, and we'll probably be discussing what's an appropriate level given some of these unknowns. So that either through a reserve fund, or it might be something where we look in an April town meeting, we still have 2 months of the fiscal year, we might be able to make the appropriate budget transfers at that time. So there's different there's different ways to get to it.
Okay, thank you.
But as you know, David, it's very unusual for the school to kind of come back mid-year for a budget transfer or something else from the town side.
Yeah.
But I think we do, we're prepared and we want to be ready to deal with that. And we won't regard it as a problem, just something we all have to deal with.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, actually, yes, one for you, Alan, and the rest of the board. Is this approach that we're sort of sketching, is this one that, absent formal decisions, but is this one that you are sympathetic with?
Well, I am, but I'll let the other board members speak for themselves. We haven't discussed it.
We just don't want to get out, out there doing
No,
something.
I think it's a very reasonable approach, in my opinion.
I have always been a supportive of this approach.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think it's disappointing, but not surprising with the CARES funds and all of that. We may not be able to get reimbursed or our returns on all of that stuff. So actually, just real quick with that, is there anything that we might have spent that, so are we running the risk of actually spending, thinking that we're, going to get reimbursed and aren't? Is there anything that we've spent so far?
Well, Kim could be more specific, but I think, Luke, my sense anyway, is that people are doing what they think is necessary, not with CARES reimbursement in mind.
Yeah, no, which I 100% agree with, right?
Yeah.
If you've got to spend it, you've got to spend it, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay that bill, right?
Yep.
So,
And
so if we could just, just
it'll
kind
be
of
us.
keep track of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
It's being tracked. Tim's tracking it with Priscilla, and I think it's about 30,000 that we've gotten back. A lot of it's been the computers and PPE, from my understanding. And, you still should keep track of all these expenditures that maybe 1 minute we think we can collect and 1 minute we can't. Worst case is then you apply for it and they say no, but to keep them tracked so that, if we can get reimbursed on them, great, but nobody is really doing something major saying, we think we're going to, get reimbursed on this and then find out you're not.
Yeah, no, but it's still something we need to keep track of, right? Because if just say it's an extra 50,000, right? That we don't get reimbursed, it's still 50,000, right?
Right.
So
That's what
yeah,
they keep track of them all with the schools and all that. And if you have 100,000, you're not sure, still apply for it. Tim can speak better on that. I know he's tracking it with Priscilla.
Yeah.
I think the approach has been go ahead and request reimbursement, and we'll see what comes back.
Yeah, no, which is good.
Right. FEMA will only reimburse so much of some, and then some of the FEMA, you might get 25% of it, then you can try for CARES. So it's definitely and you can't double dip. So that's
the tricky part is when they keep changing the rules is who do you apply for? Who do you apply to?
Yeah.
So
It sounds like we need better counsel. It can be a little more sketchy. Yeah.
Well, we do have audit firms working on it. I mean, there's a lot of towns that have had lost revenue, and there was a way back thing is maybe if towns had leftover CARES money, they could use that to offset revenue losses. And I haven't heard any more on that. But Carlisle got a significant amount of money, and it's a shame that there isn't a way that we can use it and not leave it on the table.
No, exactly.
But we do have 2 years. Is that correct for the CARES?
I think some is a deadline, Tim, of December, and then after that, isn't there a December?
The first
deadline?
round is expenditures through the end of the year. And we've got to make that request in October, apparently, for what we anticipate spending through the end of the year.
Well, and I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but it's not inconceivable that there might be additional federal money. We can't plan on it, but there's new talk about that even today.
It is an election year.
In November.
And money, right? We'll take it.
And is there any possibility of additional money from the state for the schools in the way that the DESI grant came out earlier?
Not that I've heard right now. No, Ann hasn't mentioned anything. I haven't heard any more from Jesse.
Barney, I'd be surprised, just
Yeah.
because of what they're facing in their own
Yeah.
revenue. And
And
as
the
you,
money's got to come from somewhere. I think the pot's getting dry.
well, they've been pretty, tight about revealing where their revenue really is. They don't have a budget for fiscal 21 yet.
Right.
So I'd be surprised.
And unlike the feds, they can't print money.
No.
Yeah.
They can borrow, but
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. Okay.
Well, I'm comfortable with the approach that the FinCom is taking, Jim.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Great. Well, we'll be back to you. We're going to try to put something together for next Monday night, and we know we're all in a short time frame.
You may want to hang around a little bit. Shall we talk town meeting? Wayne?
Did you want to talk about briefly long-term caps? Before
Sure. Yep.
Just as an update, and I think a number of people on this call are in long-term caps anyway. So two things. One, we met and identified 2 items. If you look at the draft warrant, there's a number of items. As we last met, we identified 2 items that we deemed as priority and that we would recommend for this year. Those 2 items being the air compressor for the fire department and the 1 police cruiser. So right now we're looking at that draft warrant total being $132,000 for those 2 items. I do need to follow up with Gary. We wanted to see if we could purchase the pickup truck using Chapter 90 funds. So that was an open question. And then the other items like the bucket truck we think is important, but it's one of those expenses that isn't necessary this year. We can put that off if things break our way and we feel comfortable, we can proceed with that next year. So there will be some savings in terms of that warrant compared to last year, in terms of just prioritizing those items. And the school one, the security system, the remainder of that was paid for already using fiscal 20 funds. So that's no longer on the list. So that's
the
where that
fire alarm?
stands. And then, I'm sorry?
Yeah. That's the fire alarm?
Yeah, that's already been completed. And that was
Okay.
using, the school essentially took fiscal 20 funds to pay for that.
Okay, good.
sorry, Scott, just one more time. So you're saying on that list for long-term caps, it would only be the police cruiser and the pickup truck that would be recommended?
The air compressor, and we haven't voted on it yet, but where we netted out, we identified the air compressor for $75,000 for the fire department.
Yep.
And the police cruiser for $57,000.
Okay. And hoping to do the pickup truck.
No, not the.
Was
pickup.
that's from Chapter 90 money.
Hoping to, okay, all right.
We
Got
think
it.
we may be able to purchase that using Chapter 90, and the feeling is let's tap funds like that before we look to.
Yeah, yeah,
But
okay.
we still need to confirm if we can do that. We think we can, but we have to vet that.
Yeah.
And then the other question, and whether now or later, is just the bylaw change to essentially dissolve long-term caps and move that. We would keep the article, it's just that FinCom would recommend the items versus long-term caps, and long-term caps would no longer be a committee. I'm happy to provide perspective on that, but I know both committees have discussed and support that, and I know multiple members on this committee have been on long-term caps. We just think it's a more efficient way to do things, and there's so much overlap between the 2 committees already that it just seems like a smart move to make at this point.
Is that a bylaw change?
Yeah, we currently have a bylaw is defined in the long-term caps is defined in the bylaw, so we would have to. I don't know what the specific changes are, but yes, we'd have to at least eliminate the long-term caps. I don't know if we have to add that responsibility under the FinCom bylaw, or if we could just eliminate the long-term cap bylaw.
We do need to change a little bit of the language because it says currently that the members of FinCom cannot be appointed to any other committees that deal with money except for the long-term caps. So we'd have to clean that language up because we won't have a long-term cap. So that bylaw would have to be changed as well as the long-term caps bylaw.
Are you looking at that for Springtown meeting or?
No, this
one. So we gotta work fast.
it won't take. I don't think it'll take any time. What do you
Okay.
think, Tim?
All right.
Oh, no. It would be pretty easy to rescind the long-term caps and tweak the FinCom
Okay.
bylaw. Yeah.
So we'll put that on the
Yeah.
agenda.
And I don't think
for
it'd be very controversial.
October.
It's really a housekeeping thing.
Yep.
You know.
Especially with the recommendations from long-term caps this year.
Well, it's also largely because of the Municipal Facilities Committee has taken on a lot more of the long-term capital requirements than the long-term caps had. So it got messy with, and nobody knew who was making what decision, I think, also.
And we moved a lot of what were traditionally long-term caps items into the operating budgets. So a lot of the technology requests are no longer in long-term caps. So it really comes down to a handful of items each year that are already discussed in the FinCom budget presentations anyway.
Good. I think it's a great move. Yep. Should we vote to do that? Somebody make a motion so we can move ahead.
I move that we put an article on the warrant that would effectively dissolve the long-term capital requirements committee, and which would clean up the language in, I think it's 13.2, well, whatever the bylaw number is in regards to members of the FinCom being appointed to other committees.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Hearing none.
Ask Kate
Go
that
ahead.
last question. So there's currently this restriction, but there's already a carve out for long-term caps, right? So if long-term caps is dissolved, do you have to address that restriction, or does that just go away?
Yeah, I think just keep everything clean. We want to address that.
So let me ask another question then that's always bothered me, certainly bothered me when I was on FinCom. Maybe didn't bother me quite as much when I was on SchoolCom, but the FinCom, because of that restriction, can't sit on the negotiation committee with the teachers, and I presume on any other collective bargaining. Why is that?
Well, that's actually the case, David.
What's that?
It has been the case with the teachers, but FinCom members have been on other bargaining committees like dispatchers and police.
So how does that run compared with this thing that says you can't be on things that involve money? I thought that was the reason why they couldn't be on teachers. Crickets.
Crickets.
Anyway,
Yeah.
well, my point, it's interesting you say that. My point is that I believe FinCom should have representation on the bargaining of the biggest union in the town. That's my belief, and it's when I was a FinCom guy, it was my.
Is it written into the bylaws they can't be on that?
There's something, yes, there is something.
Well, is this something, Tim, that town council needs to look at and tell us why, what was the purpose initially?
The town council could look at that. I guess my reading of it is it's more for sort of standing committees, bylaw committees, and not for kind of an ad hoc bargaining team.
Oh, there was
But,
some.
you know, we could look into that.
Yeah, there was a historic reason why the FinCom was not allowed to be represented, was not represented on the bargaining for the teachers.
Yeah, the question is that written down somewhere, or has that simply been past practice?
No, that's, I mean, Larry Bart know that, but probably Harrington knows it too.
The bylaw reads, members may hold no other elective or appointed town positions involving expenditure of town money during their terms of office. But I'm not sure whether a working group doing a negotiation fits under that.
I don't know. So I don't know.
And we do need to have the right language, but I would say that the way I always thought of it is that none of our members should be on committees that would recommend expenditures that our committee would then approve or recommend.
Disapprove. Yeah.
Right.
Whereas with the collective bargaining, those contracts don't come back to the FinCom for
Right.
approval.
Right.
they go, you know, they go through other procedures. So it seemed like that was a separate matter.
So when we're doing this cleaning up, we could then say something to that effect, Jim, that, you know, expenditure of money that they would then also have to approve. Maybe we should put something except for, you know, in terms of a negotiation, once that's all done, FinCom can no longer approve or disapprove.
Right.
They need to have
some wording in there. I bet town council could figure that out. I bet
Okay.
too, easily.
Tim, is it too soon to do it now, or is it, well, and I guess we should ask the FinCom also, do you think it's, you know, do you think we should, it's important for us to do this shortly, or should we wait until April?
Well, I'll talk to council. I think if they're going to amend both bylaws, we might as well do whatever work we can do. If there's time, I think there certainly is.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think this will be a big time consumer in town meeting.
I
I don't think so
And
either.
I do think it's important to streamline this.
Yeah, I agree.
If we can get it done
I agree.
with this one, let's do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be clear, we have nothing on the warrant regarding deer hunting or the Highland Building, and that's the board's intention, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
No deer hunting?
No deer hunting in the Highland Building.
I think it was mentioned at one point. I just wanted to- right.
All right,
Shooting arrows.
we still have
No
a
shooting
motion on
arrows.
the floor. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Oscalillo, aye.
Lewis, aye.
What ally?
Read I.
Thank
And
you.
for the record, it is, the number of the bylaw is 3.9.2.
Okay. Thank you. How do you have all that handy there?
I'm in my office. I'm not in Rockport, so I have everything, you know, I
Yeah.
file everything and, you know,
I've got files all around me too, but I can't find anything.
yeah, well,
Because you're a physicist.
All right.
I'm an archaeologist. That's why I'm able to dig things up.
Disordered.
Town meeting. Professor Davis.
Somebody has to unmute him.
No, I
There he
can
is.
unmute
There he is.
myself. I just need to get to the right place. So we're having one, it looks like, yes?
Yes.
Wayne,
So-
you're a little bit faint. Is there a way to turn up your volume?
Sure. I'll hold my microphone a little bit closer. How's that?
Better. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm basically waiting for direction from you. It seems like we've got a reasonably short warrant, courtesy of Highland and deer hunting and marijuana bylaws not being there. Subject to any advice you might have, I thought that apart from excess sunshine, which we don't need to worry about this time, that things went reasonably smoothly last time, and that from my, what I need to do in terms of logistics, coordinating with various other groups, we should just try to reproduce that as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree. It was that that worked well. If if the weather cooperates, the meeting will probably exceed 51 minutes. Probably certainly can be done in less than 2 hours.
Right.
We're getting cold.
Are we going rain or shine?
Well, that was actually one question. We do have a major new resource in the parking lot, meaning that we could push people under the solar canopies. I have to admit that I haven't actually gone up there while it was raining to see how things drip and so forth. So I think that is, unless any of you have a strong view on that, I think that's still a to be determined whether we try to switch locations or we just say, well, we'll do it on another day. Any views from this group?
Well, it wouldn't, but I don't, I mean, holding it under the canopy probably is a good idea anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, it may
Madam.
be that if we're willing to consider that we ought to just go ahead and do it that way, because it takes quite a bit of setup in terms of, the chairs. I mean, if we did it there, we'd probably want the custodial staff to bring some of the risers down from the stage and chairs and things like that. So it would be best to make a decision in advance rather than try to shift something on the fly.
Yeah, it would be, I guess it's going to rain on Thursday. We probably can go up and check it out, see what it looks like.
I believe there are spaces between the panels so that melting snow could.
Yeah, there is.
So it wouldn't be totally, weather tight.
Right, that's what I figured. So,
Yeah.
So Alan, if it is going to rain on Thursday, we might meet up there and perhaps get our two chiefs who were integral to our planning the last time, see if they can join us and do some sort of assessment.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. I'll check the weather report and see if we can schedule that. I'll find out when it's supposed to rain and by how much and that sort of thing.
Okay, sounds good.
However, even in sunshine, on the other hand, I mean, it would have been nice to have had a little bit of shade for the last one. So sun would, if it's a very sunny day, I would still plan to maybe meet in the bus area at least, and that would be all shaded.
Yeah, well, we are mid-October. It'll be a little different. I mean,
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Yeah. It could be snow.
It may be 50 degrees. So
Yeah.
hard to say. And then I think, the only other big thing that would be on your agenda decision-making wise is you still have, as I understand it, and Tim, correct me if you have a different understanding, that the option to temporarily reduce the quorum below 150 is still out there. I think your vote last time really only applied to the annual town meeting.
How many people actually attended our annual?
120.
120, and normally our quorum is 125?
150.
150. So I would absolutely make a motion to renew the reduced quorum that we had at our regular town meeting for our special town meeting if it's possible.
I didn't pull up the statute recently, but if I recall correctly, you have to notice it. So I believe I can look it up right now, but I believe what you'd be, if you wanted, if you are so inclined, what you'd be doing is voting tonight to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. So, people need to have notice that you're even considering this.
Well, I would then move that we put it on our next agenda in order to lower the quorum for our next.
Do you need to move stuff to put it on the agenda?
No. I'll put it on the agenda.
I'd like to take a quick look at the statute because, this was special law created for the pandemic, and there was a lot of wrangling over exactly how it should be done. And the point was that it's considered a rather fundamental hijacking of the normal democratic processes for the selectmen to be able to reduce quorum for town meeting, which is normally town meeting's prerogative. So there were special procedures. It's not a normal agenda item. But I'll take a look, see if I can find that quickly.
And do you remember what we reduced it to last time? 100?
I believe it was
75.
75.
75, I think.
75.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
When you go, you guys go Thursday to walk the solar canopy, it's not as easy as the parking lot, the playground, right? I mean, it's kind of a choppy space with poles and things, right? So,
Yeah. To be kind of like watching a ball game in Yankee Stadium.
right, exactly.
Well,
So-
yeah, that was, that, quite honestly, I haven't been up there since the canopies were completed. So, you know, I'm not aware of sight lines or anything like that. So,
But you should pay attention to that and see how many people practically, because people still have to be 6 feet apart, right, in their chairs?
yes.
I would just kind of figure out back of the envelope how many. Are you saying that you would just take the bus parking, or you would take all the little? I guess if you have a good microphone, you can put people here and there.
Have to
Figure all
see.
that out when you go check it out, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have to look and see what the
Yeah.
I mean,
physical
right. No, I
layout
agree,
is.
but my point is, it may present that 75 is like what you can comfortably see. I don't know what that means for overflow. There's kind of two different issues, right? I mean, but you may find that it's pretty limited in who can kind
Yeah.
of be in the main area.
Well, they did a
So,
pretty good
yeah.
job last time of looking at what kind of space there was and how you could arrange it so they get the number of people we need. But it's and we'll look at that on
Yeah,
whatever day we get there. Yeah.
Right. There are, since, you know, there have been a couple hundred town meetings in the last couple of months. And so around the state, there's pretty good knowledge of how to do this stuff. And our two public safety chiefs work quite closely with us to plan the last one, and I think we got it. So I just was able to check the statute, and the requirement is that before you take a vote, you have to, quote, publish notice of its intention to consider an adjustment of town meeting quorum requirements not less than 7 days before the vote of the select board or board of selectmen. So, so yeah, you get, yeah.
You do it in 2 weeks.
I don't know that you need to take a vote tonight, but you certainly would need to publish notice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we should decide tonight if 75 is the number we want to publicize, or 100, or what, right?
No, I don't think you have to publish a particular number, do you, Wayne?
No, it's just that you intend to consider the adjustment.
Okay.
Although I think
Okay.
75 is a pretty good number.
Yeah. It obviously didn't restrict the number of people who came out last time, even on the hottest day of the year, practically. Yeah.
Yeah. But we could not have had our meeting had we not reduced it.
Right.
So in the brevity test, we're going to test the efficiency of Victor's, you know, very pithy presentation with Jim.
Is this a suggestion to me, David? Very subtle, David. Very subtle.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Now.
All right.
So are we still, what's the timing that you're thinking of for the special town meeting? Are you still thinking at 10 o'clock in the morning?
That's what I was thinking anyway, yeah.
Wayne, did you have some ideas about that?
Other than that, I wish in June that we had started at 9. But actually for October, that seems about right to me, and gives everyone time to have a hearty breakfast, and then they have incentive to quit in time for lunch. So 10 o'clock feels good.
Yeah, and if it is a sunny day, it'll give a little time for the air to warm up.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to have a town meeting committee again, Wayne?
You know, we probably ought to try to round up the usual gang of suspects, perhaps. See if people are willing to help out. We don't have to have lots of endless meetings planning. It's just a question of getting folks to dust off their plans and redo it.
Yeah, I mean,
So, yeah, that would be helpful, I think.
okay, let's plan on that.
And,
Okay.
but for this one, Wayne, since there are some articles that are going to require some more presentation and potentially some more questions from people in the audience, are you going to accommodate that when you're thinking about how you're going to set it up?
That's an important question. I mean, we did not really restrict that in the last town meeting. It sort of was largely self-regulating. I did say the usual 3-minute we're going to floor talk, or we will reduce to 2 minutes. I don't think we only had questions. If I recall, no one had any speechifying anyway, so that didn't really have an impact. Yes, Victor was extremely pithy, and David's question aside, I would expect that Jim will have to speak at a little bit greater length because there are going to be more things to explain than we're just rolling things forward.
Right.
So certainly, I do think that there is probably a heightened obligation on FinCom to explain what's going on. And an issue that we did discuss, and I'm sure if I recall correctly what Victor said, you as a committee FinCom had discussed, how do we present the information? I don't think that space is terribly conducive to showing slides. I do feel like town meetings survived for 200 some years without using slides, so we can probably make that happen. It's just a question of being clear, planning out well in advance. Okay, if we're going to do handouts, let's get those ready early. Try to publish them in advance so that people can look at them on the web, and have them ready to hand out at the meeting if people want. But hopefully they will have looked at it or downloaded it on their own device.
What's the, Wayne, so we've dispensed with the warrant book, the old 35 days published mail, that's been waived in COVID, or?
No, so that has not been waived. The town is under no obligation to print and mail the warrant. It's what Carlisle chooses to do. We have to post it, but we don't actually have to mail it. I would think it would be a very bad idea, personally. I would think you ought to print and mail the warrant. I think it's.
So how much lead time, if you back into that, when does that require finalization of the warrant itself?
Now, Tim knows that.
Well, for a special town meeting, you have to have it in the voters' hands 14 days before the special. For an annual, it's only 7 days. That seems backwards to me, but that's what the law says. Historically, we've printed the warrant in the Mosquito, which is then mailed to all residents in town. So
so that's how
doing it. Yeah, that's how we kind of get it in people's hands for a special. we don't have that many special town meetings.
Right, but I mean, you're
We
not
don't
gonna,
mail
have
them.
much- 14 days is the beginning of October, right? So it's pretty quick. to get that
Yep.
done.
So we'd have to finalize, the 22nd will be we'll need to,
Right, next meeting, yep.
Right, but I mean, for FinCom, the burden's on FinCom, right? Because they have to finalize their numbers.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Right, okay.
okay. All righty. Anything else? Town meeting.
Are we going over any of the warrant articles in particular that are
We
in?
can if you'd like to.
Well, I had a question about the municipal facilities section. Is that the final?
That's just the article that was in play for the annual town meeting that didn't make it. So we're waiting for a revised version from the Municipal Facilities Committee. I think
Okay.
I know what the long-term caps revision is, if I heard Scott
Yeah.
correctly, so
Yep.
I'll put that in tonight.
Okay. And so we're going to have costs on this because this
Yeah,
last time.
but by the 22nd, we'll have the actual numbers attached to the actual language for each
Okay.
article. Right.
Well, our last time, FinCom worked with, Jerry Lehrman's on this call, but FinCom worked with municipal facilities and with the selectmen. And as I recall, we picked just kind of a round number, and we did not attach prices to any of the particular things in there because the idea was that would give some flexibility to the Municipal Facilities Committee to tackle the things that broke first, because we have no crystal ball to say, well, this needs to be done first and that needs to be done second. We have some priorities, obviously, there, and that would kind of limit the price. But Jerry, I see you unmuted, so why don't you jump in here? No? Yes? No?
Yeah, I'm looking at the article here because it said the sum of 500,000.
Right.
The way it was
Right.
presented.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were going to do last time.
Yeah, and I think that would be still advisable. And I believe that Municipal Facilities has rank ordered many of these, but have not attached numbers because a lot of our numbers are, 3, 4, 5 years old from when they did the original survey. So that's another problem that we've been running into. And that's why we don't want to attach numbers and say, well, this project's going to cost this much. And then you find out it either costs way more or way less. And it's,
Right. But doesn't FinCom need well, I guess, is this, this is separate from the operating budget?
Well, from our stand, first of all, we have to budget as if everything passes, number one.
Yeah, okay.
Secondly, the FinCom was supportive of the approach that Kate outlined of a aggregate number and not, a micromanaging of it. I have to say, though, when I discussed earlier our effort to try to keep the total cost of the town flat, we were thinking of the facilities committee as well. And so I think a number of 500,000, at least to me, it's just an opinion now, would be a tall order.
Yeah. And so Kate and Jerry, the municipal facilities needs to, do you have any sense of what that number is for this time around?
Jerry, are you there? Because I don't have it in front of me. We did go through the thing. I would just say that the lower the number overall, the more flexible you're going to have to let the Municipal Facilities Committee be. They have a list of projects.
Yeah.
We know that we can't get to all the projects. If we think we do our best job that we can to try to look into our crystal ball and say, this is, job 1 and this is job 2. But then as soon as you do that, some elevator breaks that you didn't expect was going to break, that you thought you'd get a couple more years out of, and that throws everything out of whack. So the list is not going to change, replacing the roof in the town hall. It's leaking. We have to replace it. That's one of the things on our list.
No, but I'm just more saying, it seems to me that if the committee doesn't have it yet, obviously you need to come up with the sort of, given the framework that the FinCom is setting forward, what it is you think is reasonable to ask for. So that's all. And that needs to be done by, I'm assuming by, Monday of next week, right? If the FinCom wants to try to finalize this.
Yeah.
I think you also need to look at it strategically. I mean, I don't know how much is unspent from previous warrants, and we're really talking about 6 months here before the next town meeting. So you don't necessarily need a full year of, you're really funding between October till April, or so I think part of it is looking at that time frame and how much can you actually get underway between now and April.
Jerry has just rejoined us, so
yes.
I think.
Forgive me, we had 2 Zoom meetings going on in our household, and my wife got the good computer. So just with regard to our wish list of projects, the total comes to $736,000. On that list are several big ticket items, like the rooftop unit and roof at Town Hall, the chiller unit at the library, a whole bunch, $100,000 worth of roofing projects at the library, and several projects, a project at the police station to fix the code violation in the plenum chamber in their heating system, and to deal with some deferred maintenance costs. Now, I understand the issues of money being tight, and obviously whatever money we get, we will attempt to spend in the most judicious way possible. Unfortunately, we really don't have a good enough crystal ball to be able to predict exactly which one of these items is going to cause a catastrophic failure first. So whatever money we're allocated, we will attempt to spend it to fix those problems that are of most immediate concern.
Do you have some estimate of, given I mean, you've clearly identified some high priority items.
But we've gone through the list, and we organized it by priority, and we assigned priority 1, 2, and 3. Unfortunately, the majority of the big ticket items are all high priority items. So if we looked at just the high priority items, that would bring the total down to 692,000.
Okay.
And that's because a lot of those priority items are big ticket items.
Just mechanical question. Unspent, whatever the appropriation is, say it's 500,000, unspent money rolls over, or does it just convert to free cash?
Typically, the warrant article lasts for 3 years, and if any unexpended money at the end of 3 years goes into free cash, assuming it's already been raised.
So last year, the sum of last year, was it all spent or some rolling into this current fiscal year?
No, the money from last year is good for 3 years, and a lot of those projects, like the DPW septic system, have been underway for a while and are not completed, and probably won't be completed for at least another year. The trailer at the DPW is also underway and is about to go out for bid. Whether at the end of that 3-year period for the FY20 warrant article, whether there'll be unspent money, I can't say. For the FY19 warrant article, which was something like $350,000, pretty much most of that has been either spent or committed.
So this list then represents all new projects, Jerry, not uncompleted projects that we
Yes,
previously.
these are all new things. Well, new in that they're ongoing issues that we're finally attending to.
And Jerry, I don't know if you've got the warrant article from the June town meeting in front of you, but is that list everything, or is that the list that, but there are 3, 6, 9, 12, looks like there are 14 items on here, or is that the list that was the high priority group?
No, that's only a partial list. The full list for the $132,000 includes about 15 or 18 items.
Well, what I was just trying to get at is this, is this, what's listed here, is that the same list that would be on your high priority list, or has that changed? And then also what,
Well, no,
I was just going to mention something that Scott had said earlier. I'm not sure you heard it, but if we were thinking, well, we're really talking about, third week of October into, April or May of next year, how much would we need to get started on? We're only going to get started on some of these things, and so what would be the the kind of minimum amount or ballpark minimum that we would need to authorize?
Well, but I mean, that's hard to say, because getting started on a $180,000 project requires having $180,000. Otherwise, we can't go out to bid to somebody if we don't have the money to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
So on the list of items on the warrant, there are a couple things that we knocked down to low priority. Modifying the town hall parking lot, we made a low priority. The high priority items on the list are the roof and the RTU at town hall, the ductwork and deferred maintenance at the police station. Septic system compliance at the police station is a non-issue since it passed Title V inspection. The other big ticket items are the library chiller and the library roof. And then there are safety issues with the library stairway railing and the emergency exit. So if you look at all those, what we consider high priority items, the total amount still comes to $600,000. Now, if we don't get that whole amount of money, then we will attempt to do as much as we can with the money that we're allocated.
Yeah. So how do we move forward from here? Because I'm hearing, on the one hand, that even the $500,000 that was on this, article for the regular town meeting is sort of too big for us to manage financially, and yet at the same, and then I'm also hearing that the sort of high priority items have us well over that amount. So we're going to have to get the relevant parties together to talk this through and come up with something that isn't going to be satisfactory maybe to either group, but that we think we can manage.
Well, we just, at our meeting this morning, we just went through and sorted things by priority. I'm expecting to send that spreadsheet to FinCom, and we would be happy to discuss with them the items on the list.
Well, I think if I could interject there, Jerry, I think, again, we don't have any role in prioritizing any of those items. Our only interest is in trying to figure out what we can afford. And I think, at least my hope on Monday night, is that we would go through all the expenses we know we have to do and talk about what we still have in terms of revenue flexibility within the goal of trying to be flat, and then seeing out of that what we think would be available for facilities. Now, that would be our opinion. You know, a warrant article can go forward either way, with or without us, and we would still have to budget as if it were to pass.
Well, and I view our job is to identify the maintenance needs of the town and attempt to address them as best we can. And of course, that means we can't spend money that we don't have. So if we list a whole bunch of things, if we can address it this year and it doesn't break, then we can address it next year.
Well, and again, it's like Scott said, we'll have another bite of the apple in April or so. And whatever doesn't happen this year will still have to be dealt with at some point. Yeah.
Okay. Should be a fun meeting Monday night. Anything further? Hearing none. Thank you very much. I'll plan to be there Monday night. And yeah, it's a tough problem to have. It's but it's real. All righty. This brings us to liaison reports.
Jim, do you
Have
want to
any?
adjourn FinCom?
Yep.
I'm sorry, Scott, what?
Do you want to adjourn FinCom?
Yes, right. Why not? Could we have a motion?
I move we adjourn FinCom.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call. Dar, aye.
Liang, aye.
Lipinski, aye.
Scott?
Triola, aye.
Well, we are adjourned and like to thank the board for entertaining us this evening, and we will be in touch very soon.
Thank you.
Always a good time.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Yep.
Yes.
All you're doing.
You know, I don't know whether you guys or school has it harder this year, but neither of you have an easy job.
School has it harder.
I think they do too. I agree with that.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. Do we have any liaison reports?
I'm on the Municipal Facilities Committee. We've already
heard your report.
Heard that report.
Yeah.
And I'm master plan, so you've already heard that report.
Yeah. I did not get to go to the COA board meeting last time, but I will go to their next one. So I don't have a report either. All right.
I've attended a few of the Board of Health meetings. There was a task force set up about testing.
Mhm.
And I'm on the communications group, I guess, along with Jean Berry, who chairs it, and some other people. So we've met a few times and looking at ways to publicize the need for continued vigilance on social distancing, on hygiene, on reporting, and trying to clarify the Board of Health website on the town website has a COVID page, but it's not really being kept up, and it does have accurate case count. The only thing that's up to date is case count, but in terms of guidance from the state, links to state protocols, general discussions, best practices, whatever, it's kind of lacking. So we're trying to take some initiative to improve that and make it a go-to place for the community to get answers for things. Just general questions, FAQs, and other useful information. So that's where that's at.
Thank you. Hearing no others, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I'm going to ask one other thing. Can we wait till the 22nd? Do we need to interim meeting before the 22nd? I don't think we'll have much more information.
We're gonna learn, what are we gonna learn Monday from FinCom?
Well, we won't learn it time enough to do much with it. Yeah.
Walking backwards though, Tim, for the 2 weeks from the 18th, do we have enough time to look at all the warrants and decide on what we're doing? I mean, 17th rather.
If we approve it on the 22nd, we will.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we have to meet the 22nd, but we don't need to meet October 6th.
Correct.
Right.
So far, yep.
And is the Mosquito publishing every week now?
I think they're back to a regular schedule toward the end of the month, but I'll confirm that.
Okay,
We need to get that in there.
right. And does it have to be a print version that the warrant articles would go into? Or could they're electronic?
Well, I think they're going to all print now, aren't they?
Are they going back to all?
I think I thought I read somewhere that they're going back to all print now.
All right, so anyway, that's the other thing to confirm,
Okay.
right? Because I guess, we want it to be all print because then it gets to every household.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, Kate, that means we need to get cracking on that personnel bylaw.
I made a bunch of phone calls. When you get back, call me.
Okay. And then Luke, was there anything, I know you had said there might be something for CPA, but is that, we're just going ahead with the acceptance of the funds and into the pots, but we don't have additional projects?
No, so actually, I met with Annette and Kathy for historic. So there's the windows in the red brick building. That will probably come before us. And then I noticed it wasn't on the warrant. They submitted an article for it's a survey of the buildings in the town center, but then also too, they wanted to expand it to include a more kind of town-wide historical survey. Excuse me. So I think that's gonna, that'll get tweaked and that'll come before us. Then there was, so Tim, do you know, is the dam going away?
Which dam?
Well, it was, I think it was the Greeno Dam that we had the application for. I can ping Sylvia.
Yeah, no, Sylvia has an application that's ready to go in. She's just waiting for them to say, we're accepting applications.
Yeah,
so a ton of work on that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. So I think it'll probably go, and then, we accept the funds, and then ultimately, if we don't use them, we just return them. But best to kind of have it just in case. And then the other one is the town clock, right? So we need to repair the cradle that it sits in. So so now that we actually have Pete and Samantha, I think we'll be able to get a full committee together to vote on those. Who's in charge of the town clock? Is facilities taking that over now?
Facilities
Okay.
got stuck with it. It's really not it's because it's not a municipal building, but it is. But we kind of flipped it into Tim's lap.
Okay. Yeah. So we're just using the same application as last. It's the same.
Yeah.
All the information's the same. So I can send those out. And then we'll fill it out.
And are these all items, Luke, that would be on the October special town meeting warrant?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So those,
So we'll need to get those in a week or so.
Yeah, well, CPA, usually what happens is we'll put everything on there, and then, either, they fall out or people decide not to do them. So then we just don't move them at town meeting. So we could put, we can have placeholders for all of them. Because we also have to get grant agreements and whatnot set up, but we'll just put the placeholders in and it'll be fine. So the only thing is with the clock, though, you'll need to get a quote. As long as you have one, that's fine, because we can.
We already got the quote.
Oh, good. So that's perfect. As long as you got the one, then you've got a not to exceed price. So.
Right. Barney, do you know if the housing had any ideas about any kinds of money they might want? I know during the COVID thing there was things they could have done had they had money, like some rental assistance. I don't know if they could have done some mortgage assistance for people that were in trouble. So, I mean, and you know, we do need to have a member from housing on CPC.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think it would be nice to have possibly at a certain point a joint trust CPC meeting, because CPC can also spearhead housing and initiatives. So to work together so that, you know, it wouldn't be a big surprise to CPC at a certain point or whatever, you know.
Yep.
So
Let's talk about that at this.
yes, I'm just
week. Yeah.
throwing that
good.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
what the trust used to always do in the past is they always had like this revolving fund of like $50,000. It was never really well spent, right? But the thing is, during COVID, right, if you've got that pot of money there and the things that are available, because they did send out a list of a variety of things that could be covered, right?
Yes, they did.
A while back, yeah. So if the funds are available, right, then you know, it becomes the housing trust, I believe, is the one that can actually have that sort of kind of separate bucket. You know, it's we can't do it with, you know, historic or Conscom or RecCom. But I'm pretty confident that, yeah, housing can have that bucket where they can spend funds as long as it's housing related, right? So,
Exactly.
you know, we'd probably have to clear it with council, but we wouldn't necessarily have to get town meeting approval. So you just get, you know, but then you get the bucket. Usually, I think it was about 50,000. Yeah, you don't have to go 50, you could go 20, but you know, and then it was on a 3-year cycle. So ultimately, I tried to convince the trust at one point to do it annually, and then we would just every year bring it up to 50, but they didn't like that. But yeah, but that was the old trust. I guess this new trust is a lot more reasonable. You know, because in that way it was always, they always just had 50,000, right? And then
they
right. So it was a reasonable thing.
There's times where, you know, properties come up and you need to have some seed money to, you know, to secure it. And if you now have to go to town meeting and then get it,
right.
So it's really important for the trust to be a little more nimble.
Exactly. Right. And that was the whole reasoning behind this this pot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It went towards weird things in the past. So
yeah.
Okay, but you're saying we could set up that pot without town meeting approval?
No. The pot needs town meeting approval. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but I mean, it's never been an issue in the past. It's essentially.
Gotcha. So let's assume we want to include that then in as a item under the CPC section of the warrant articles.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I probably even have a past application, so cut paste.
Okay.
And typically typically the way it was written, it was for new projects, right? Or, you know, we can say COVID related things. I mean, you can put all of that stuff in there. But the idea was that if there was an already existing project, like say Benfield, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't take that money and spend more on Benfield, right? It would have to be new projects or right. Yeah. So that was it. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I'll dig one of those up.
Yeah. So we'll need proposed article like a week from now.
Yeah, that's fine. I can.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah. It's
just nailing it down.
Yeah.
Good.
And Luke, you mentioned something about having town council look at it. And what is it they need to look at?
No, it would just be after we got the 50,000, right? Just
okay.
Anytime, you know, you just want to make sure that the funds are being spent appropriately, because if they're not, somebody calls you out, then they've got to be.
We don't need that for the town meeting.
No.
Piece on this. Okay.
No.
Great.
No.
Well, thank you, Luke. Yeah, that'd be great to get that stuff together.
All right. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Oscar Lilloye.
Lewis, I.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Thank you. And the dog voted too.
David's dog, right? Okay.
Yeah.